voices in my head know me, call me. I will be restless. Somehow they chose me. This is my nightlife. Wanna be high life. I feel so reckless, calling them all night. I'm calling, I'm calling. I'm calling, I'm calling. It's the freedom I shouldn't have, with the people I shouldn't know. I might as well and still I'm dead. It's the only thing that I fucking do. Happy on the outside, weary inside, smiling depression. They think I'm alright.
You're not just my fun quality.
I'm calling, I'm calling, I'm calling. It's the freedom I shouldn't have, with the people I shouldn't know. I might as well and still I'm dead. It's the only thing that I fucking do. It's not exactly me, I know, but I can't help it. The day called back, you were never here. The day called back, you cannot see me.
Shoulders. We're going to hear from Lewis Hamilton and from Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen with our very own Paul di Resta down in Parkford.
Awesome day for the Silver Arrows cars in the top three. Verstappen taking a very solid drive. You can see the emotion here from Lewis, what that means to get that victory. On very exactly what he is. But Lewis, if we can try and grab a quick word with you as he puts the steering wheel back in the car. Lewis, what an absolute masterclass. You had an answer for everybody today, out on track.
Thank you so much. I couldn't have done it without this incredible team. These guys have done an amazing job, and I'm just really proud of everyone. And today, the car and myself, I felt that synergy today, which I hadn't been feeling for the whole year, so it's a good feeling.
Back-to-back wins. Is this when Mercedes' season really kickstarts? You take this fight to Ferrari?
This is when we're going to start trying to continue to apply the pressure, a 1-2 for the team. We've got our Mercedes board with us who have been supporting us from day one, so it's great to have them all here and just see that true force within the team, strength in depth. So I hope we can continue. And a big thank you to all the fans that have come out, because the fans have been incredible, as they always are here, and I'm glad the weather stayed good. So
Back in home soil, enjoy it. Well done, mate.
It's qualifying for the Monaco Grand Prix with commentary from Martin Brundle and David Croft. Arguably the most important and exciting qualifying session of the season. Welcome along to round 6 of the Formula One World Championship in 2018. It's the Monaco Grand Prix. Now, the pole sitter hasn't won here in the last 3 years, but out of the 64 previous Monaco Grand Prix, the winners come from the top 3 on the grid 54 times. And around this 2-mile circuit, overtaking is very, very difficult. Track position is everything. Verstappen tried to overtake Grosjean in 2015. Look what happened. Straight on into the barriers. Gerhard Berger and Damon Hill tried to get a bit too close together in 93, and look what happened there as well. And Kimi Raikkonen tried to overtake Adrian Seidl in 2008, and well, that ended in absolute disaster for the Force India driver, and it didn't help Kimi's race either. So, qualifying today, very, very important. And Pirelli have brought their softest tyre compounds in their ranges. The Hyper Soft tyre is the softest tyre we've ever seen in Formula One. We've got the Ultra Soft and we've got the Super Soft as well. We've got track temperatures of 49 degrees. That is way higher than we've seen at any stage over this weekend. We have got 2 miles of track. We have got 20 drivers, little room, Martin Brundle, the potential and the chance for anybody to go into the barriers, and who knows what else might happen in the next hour.
Absolutely, as we saw with Max Verstappen, who's looked a star around here through free practice. One error, one misjudgment, and you're straight in the barriers, and that's the way it should be at a street circuit. And the track temperature already 49 degrees Celsius, so grip will be at a premium. We know they've got the hyper soft tyres. How quickly will they come in? Can they keep them in for a whole lap? I think the tyres are taking a bit of punishment around here, so it's a big challenge, and you need to build up to a crescendo. Q3, your final lap of qualifying, should be your fastest lap of the weekend, and if you've got it absolutely right, and Ricciardo looks like that man to me at the moment, then you deliver. That's when you take your risks, and young Max is going to have to learn that, you know, to finish first you must finish. You can't keep throwing it in the wall.
You can't, and he hit the wall in final practice. Christian Horner, the team principal at Red Bull, does not look happy. Ted Kravitz, why?
I've got bad news for Max Verstappen. Yes, confirmation from Red Bull Racing that they've discovered a problem with Verstappen's gearbox, which is threatening their involvement in qualifying. So you remember, Crofty, we just did a piece with about 10 minutes to go before the end of the session, and I noticed they'd had to take the rear wing off. That's because when they fired the car up and started going through the gears, then they noticed there was a problem. They are working to fix it. It's not by all means that the gearbox will need changing, but they are dealing with an additional problem around the gearbox that is making it even less likely that, unfortunately for Verstappen, that he'll be able to make it for qualifying.
Red Bull have been 1-2 in every single session this weekend. They've never locked out the front row for a Monaco Grand Prix. It could be Martin Brundle. They're not going to get a chance to end that run this afternoon.
And this is a great chance for Red Bull. This circuit suits them, the agility of the car, the way their aerodynamics works, the fiery nature of their drivers. They should be able to lock out this front row and give themselves a great chance of a victory tomorrow. This track owes Daniel Ricciardo a victory anyway, after it was so cruelly taken away from him a couple of years back. And he certainly, again, does look like the man to beat, as I said. But we do know that Mercedes and Ferrari can pump it up a bit in qualifying. And got a bit of extra power.
They have done, although here, around such a short circuit that is not totally dependent on power, they might not have the ability to gain that big advantage this afternoon as they would have, say, in Canada next time out.
Well, there's never any substitute for a bit of extra horsepower, but you're absolutely right, David. It's about the amount of time. I mean, the average speed around here, about 104 miles an hour, 166 kilometres per hour, but there's an awful lot of slow corners, and that's where you make your time up.
This man, who was born in Monaco, Charles Leclerc, and remembers as a 4-year-old boy watching from a balcony in Saint-Devote the drivers qualifying and racing at the Monaco Grand Prix, gets his chance today to go out there and join the rest of them. Charles Leclerc, the Monegasque driver, one of 20 on this grid. And we have a green light and we can get going. Let's give you some qualifying pointers from Mark Hughes of Motorsport magazine. And Mark says Ferrari looks as if it might be close enough to Red Bull that its Q3 engine mode advantage could make it a pole threat. Kimi Räikkönen on pole, remember, this time last year. Sebastian Vettel's been on pole here before as well. None of the top 3 teams look far enough clear of 10th to risk using the Ultras rather than the Hypersofts in Q2. If you can start on the Ultrasoft, that's a good idea. The Hypersoft is not lasting a hugely long time in terms of race pace. Monaco's Q1 produces the most extreme traffic problems seen all season, and the chances of a big name falling at the first hurdle are much higher than normal, because sometimes, Martin Brundle, there is just no room and nowhere to go to get out of the way.
And we'll see them backing up, trying to find space, and then you get in somebody else's way. Your tyres and brakes cool down a little bit too much. It's only 2 miles long, this racetrack. Will we see a sub 1 minute 10? I think that would be extraordinary. I think there's a good chance we might get into the 1 minute 10s, which in itself, when you think about the average speed around so many hairpins, this is where they're going at their highest speed, bursting into the sunshine, coming out of the tunnel before they're faced with turns 10 and 11, the little chicane there. As you can see the Haas in the chicane there, just backing up, trying to find some space.
Now, the lap record was broken here last year. In terms of a race lap record, it was broken as well, and one of 11 lap records that were broken in 2017, and we have gone infinitely much faster already this weekend. Daniel Ricciardo in practice this morning, 1:11.786, the fastest time we've ever seen around Monaco. We were talking about Ayrton Senna's great lap 30 years ago. I know the track's changed a little bit since then, but we're round about 12 seconds a lap faster than one of the greatest pole laps, if not the greatest of all time.
My front right tire temperature doesn't work. It's not working, yeah. No worries.
No worries for you standing on the pit wall. He's probably thinking, yeah, they obviously get constant readouts of where their tyres and brakes are at, so they can prepare their car. The Hypersofts are coming in pretty quickly. If you've gone out early, you've got the luxury of being able to slow down, knowing nobody's yet on a hot lap. But I think that luxury is about to be ended as we see those that left the pit lane first start to catch up those that are trying to find space.
Everybody is out on track bar Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen. So some of the mechanics, there goes Daniel Ricciardo, from the right-hand side of the garage, have been assisting the rebuild on Max Verstappen's car. We have 18 minutes of this session. So, Martin, if they can get that car out with 3 minutes to go, he should be able to get a lap in and get a chance just to get out of Q1. If you're joining us for qualifying for the first time in 2018, 18 minutes for the first part of qualifying. We lose the slowest 5, then we have another 15 minutes, we lose the next slowest 5, and then final 12 minutes, the top 10 go for pole.
And normally they would spend quite a long time setting that car up on a flat patch. It's been thrown together, sorting out all the issues. And, you know, Max went out in Q3, FP3, free practice 3 this morning with all the best kit ready for qualifying, ready for the race. and therefore you just don't.
Touch the front left. I'm not sure if I damage. Seems okay from our side.
I think he'll have enough pace if Verstappen ever does get out, but you know, it's going to be whatever they've managed to throw together in the time frame.
It's rare that one of the favourites for pole position is under so much jeopardy and pressure and the potential not to take that advantage in Formula One, and today we are very much seeing that. At the moment we're watching Valtteri Bottas making his way round the final corner. Anthony Nogues, the man who had the brainchild of the Monaco Grand Prix back in 1929. Bottas crosses the line. He's not the fastest, in fact he's only 5th fastest. His teammate Lewis Hamilton next across the line. He goes 3rd fastest behind Sergio Perez and Sebastian Vettel. These are early stages. These times will change dramatically.
They will, but I'm still surprised to see Mercedes in 3rd and 6th after the first early hot laps.
I'm almost as surprised to see Sergei Sorokin 4th at the moment for a Williams team who have not had the best time of it in qualifying of late. They've lost both cars in Q1 3 times at the last 4 race weekends.
If you're new to Formula One, welcome, and if you see the car sparking a lot, it's not a problem. It's new skid blocks underneath to protect the floor of the car through the Grand Prix. As soon as they roll out into qualifying, they're in what they call part ferme conditions, so they have to roll out with their race car. There's very few changes they can make. Tyre pressures, front wing angle, and also any other mechanisms they got on their steering wheel to change the differential in the back and the way the car applies its power, and that's it.
Blistering pace from Daniel Ricciardo out on the racetrack. His teammate Max Verstappen hasn't even got his crash helmet on yet, and there are just under 13 minutes to go of this Q1 session. Verstappen, after crashing this morning, really at risk of not making this session at the moment. Ricciardo and Raikkonen both going well. Look how much faster Daniel Ricciardo is through the second sector. Superb pace. Now he's got to contend with this traffic. How is his lap being compromised here? Looks awful as we ride on board with the Red Bull driver.
Yeah, he really did get compromised by 2 Renaults. I don't think they'll be penalised for blocking, but it certainly didn't help his lap at all, and therefore it's a late 1 minute 12. Not too shabby, pretty impressive, but it certainly compromised him at the end of the lap.
Yeah, still the fastest. Kimi Raikkonen got compromised too in the middle sector and the final sector. He was very much blazing a trail at the start of that particular lap.
Sirotkin's been outperforming his car, I would say, at Williams, been doing a very good job. The 2 Toro Rossos look like they've been best of the rest, although Renault fancy that position after the top 3 teams. And where will McLaren find themselves at the end of this qualifying hour?
And we'll be live with the Renault Pitbull. Cyril Abitbol, the team principal, is joining us live throughout the weekend to give us an insight from the inside as we watch Kimi Raikkonen now into the Nouvelle Chicane. As we do that, Ted, breaking news from Red Bull.
Yeah, they do have to change the gearbox. Verstappen will not take part in qualifying. You can't change a gearbox in 11 minutes, no matter how good your mechanic. So what a blow from Max Verstappen.
Look on the positive side. His last Q1 elimination was China 2017. He finished on the podium that particular afternoon, but that is absolutely no consolation for Max Verstappen, one of the favourites to take pole this afternoon, out of qualifying before he even gets going. Fernando Alonso has the fastest time at the moment, not for long though. Kimi Raikkonen beats him by 2/100ths of a second. And what happened in the tunnel here? Got a bit blocked there, Martin, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So that was...
Yeah, the Mercedes blocked me completely.
He did.
Completely my lap.
there is absolutely no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt about that at all. That was a block. So I said to Helmut Marko, he said...
The frickin' headrest is loose. Okay, alright. If it's unsafe, we'll box. Currently P12. It's not unsafe, but just fix it. Okay, we'll do it next time around. So we'll concentrate now, cool in the rears, plus 30.
Apologies for Lance Stroll's choice of language there, but he is a man who's been frustrated right from the outset this weekend.
Yeah, I think he's feeling pretty unhappy in that car and in the team, isn't he? Is Lance Stroll. But, I wonder which Mercedes that was in the tunnel.
Well, how do the stewards see that, Martin? Kimi got blocked, as it appeared to us, but still set the fastest time. Do the stewards say, right, okay, we're going to take that and have a look at it and penalise the other car, or do they say, well, company still went fastest? What's the problem?
They may well say that, and they have to apply a different filter to this racetrack, of course, in terms of what is a block or not. That was a clear block in the tunnel, and you go, well, do we need penalties at all? But in qualifying conditions, if you're not ruthless on the blocking, it's like fouling in football. You've got to apply the rules, and the referee's got to be strict on it. Otherwise, this lot will take such liberties.
Good lap from Hulkenberg, took him 6th fastest as he crossed the line. Leclerc, who has scored points in the last 2 races, currently 13th fastest for Sauber, and that's a decent lap from him as well. So Ricciardo, Raikkonen, Alonso and Sergei Sirotkin currently 4th fastest. Sergio Perez was up there in the early skirmishes as well, and he set a personal best through the first sector. Out of the tunnel he comes into the daylight, being pursued by Carlos Sainz, Force India and Renault. We saw great tangles and battles between these two teams last year, but Renault 4th place in the Constructors' Championship at the moment, having the better of the opening 5 races of the season. As through to back we go. Hold your breath through the swimming pool section and hope that he can stay away from the barriers here as well. You can't rest watching this. You can't certainly rest, Martin, when you're behind the wheel.
It's a frenzy. Everything just keeps coming at you. Barriers, curbs, manhole covers, the camber on the road, the bumps, everything. And it just is relentless and brilliant all at the same time.
And Sergio Perez goes 6th fastest overall. We have 8 minutes to go. Max Verstappen, if you're just joining us, is out of qualifying. They have to change the gearbox in his Red Bull. They're not going to be able to do that, send him out on the track in time. So he will start right at the back of the grid at very best. Might even be from the pit lane tomorrow as well. Kevin Magnussen, Lance Stroll, Marcus Ericsson and Brendan Hartley, the other drivers in danger at the moment.
And it was Bottas who's under investigation for impeding Kimi Raikkonen. It's been noted, is what the stewards are saying at the moment.
And one more parish note as well. If you weren't with us in Barcelona last time out, Romain Grosjean had a crash right at the start. He caused it, said the stewards. He gets a 3-place grid penalty from wherever he qualifies this afternoon. Right, back to the live action. Here's Sebastian Vettel over the bump on the outside of the track, descending down the hill towards Mirabeau, and he's going nicely. 200ths up to the first sector.
Yeah, there's just not enough ground clearance underneath these cars to go over a bump like that. That's why they have to go around it. And clearly, as you see, when the downforce of the car is like an upside-down aeroplane, forces the car towards the track, the ground clearance disappears completely.
Lewis Hamilton very much on it through the swimming pool section. Kimi Raikkonen is the car just ahead of him, and already Carlos Sainz is backing up a little bit. Sergio Perez has dived into the pit lane, which is good for both Kimi and for Lewis, because the Force India out of the way as Vettel goes 9th fastest overall. Hamilton crosses the line 2nd fastest at 1:12.4. We're not seeing massive fast lap times in the 1:11s at the moment. Track temperature 46 degrees. If that starts to cool a bit, that normally helps these lap times get faster and faster. Sebastian Vettel 2nd fastest overall, 1:12.4 for him. While he does that, his teammate Kimi Raikkonen, we saw him starting his latest lap, going very speedily indeed through the first sector. There is Kimi round the Lowe's hairpin, slowest corner on the Formula 1 calendar.
We've got just 7 cars on track at the moment. They certainly put plenty of fuel in, didn't they? I mean, fuel's not a big problem here to carry around like it would be at, say, Silverstone, carrying extra kilos all the way around a long lap like that. So Kimi Raikkonen then certainly had enough fuel to keep pounding in the laps.
Let's go down to the Red Bull. I keep saying it, I keep getting it wrong. Cyril Abiteboul on the Renault pit wall. Apologies, Cyril. I'm looking straight into that Red Bull garage, and we're all talking Max Verstappen. Their bad news, everybody else's good news, probably. That's one leading competitor out of the way. But what are your hopes for qualifying for this afternoon?
Frankly, to stay away from trouble. So as always in Monaco, so it's you need to align traffic and all the rest, and good sectors everywhere, which is a bit of a challenge in particular for Q1 and Q2. So our strategy is to have as many laps as possible for Q1 to be on the safe side, which we think we have the pace to do that and save a set for later.
It seems to me, Cyril, that you're to be best of the rest after the top 3 teams. You're fighting with McLaren and with Toro Rosso.
Exactly. We have Williams also that is sort of out there, a bit surprising, but let's see a bit later when things settle a little bit, because it's all affected by traffic so far.
Cyril, thank you very much. We'll be back with you in the next part of qualifying in Q2, if that's okay. Sebastian Vettel, we saw the team radio graphic basically saying, I got absolutely stuffed there and I'll go and push again. And, well, 1:12.4, he's 2nd fastest, but he clearly, Martin, came up against some cars at the wrong time. We talk about traffic all the time, and that was a clear example of what it does to your lap time.
Still a nice comfortable gap though, isn't it, for Daniel Ricciardo, 0.4 of a second, but with Verstappen not taking part, we're only going to lose 4 drivers now in this first part of qualifying, and at the moment that's Leclerc, Ericsson, Stroll and Magnussen.
Esteban Ocon moves up, but only to 11th fastest, and Ted's watching McLaren and Fernando Alonso.
Yeah, much better as we see the work. I think the work is still going on Max Verstappen's car. It didn't look particularly frenetic, did it? But they'll do what they can. Wouldn't it be good if we just had quick change gearboxes, Crofty? Just take one off and put one on again with dry brakes on it.
I'm sure it will happen one day.
One day, but they're still working on it, Max Verstappen's car. Anyway, Fernando Alonso P5, and that's much more like it from the McLaren driver. Was outpaced by his teammate Stoffel Van Dorn in FP3, but I'm told that's because Alonso got traffic and never got a clear lap. So that's much more the kind of pace that McLaren were looking for.
Fernando Alonso came 6th here, didn't he, in 2010. Started 24th on the grid that day. Michael Schumacher, brilliant drive. I remember in 2006 was 5th from 22nd on the grid. Verstappen starts last tomorrow after that gearbox change, and he might want to go back and watch Alonso and Schumacher's respective performances for some inspiration.
Indeed, so winding down now. In terms of time available, 3 and a bit minutes. Obviously it's a short out lap here once you leave the pits, once you've navigated the pit lane itself, so you can leave it quite late. You get what they call track evolution, where the track keeps rubbering in, keeps giving you grip. There's so many braking and traction zones around this short lap that the track really will just keep giving you lap time.
So, Martin, just under 3 minutes to go here. Who's at risk? This man, Kevin Magnussen, slowing down now, trying to find a gap, trying to get a clear lap in. He's in that bottom 5. Valtteri Bottas for Mercedes, right on the cusp of that bottom 5 as well. He was 3rd here last year on the grid. At the moment, Valtteri Bottas is going out unless he can improve.
Well, Bottas is on his first sector already, and it's not particularly spectacular, but he should easily clear qualifying 1, and I suspect he will. It does look like he's struggling a little bit, doesn't it, Bottas?
Yeah, his teammate Lewis Hamilton in the top 4 in the garage at the moment as Marcus Ericsson moves himself up into 16th. Still Sergei Sorokin right up there for Williams, 6th fastest. Lance Stroll in the other Williams down in 18th, and Van Dorn now goes 4th fastest. Very good lap.
The track is really giving up grip now, really helping the drivers. They're getting some confidence. Leclerc popped himself into 8th place in the Sauber Alfa Romeo as well.
Seems like now is a good time to be on this track if you can keep it all together, if you can get a good lap going. Valtteri Bottas has put in the best middle sector personally that he's provided in this session so far. Is this going to be good enough to jump him up into the top 10 comfortably? 3rd fastest for Valtteri Bottas. So I'd say now the likes of Grosjean, Gasly, Sainz, Hülkenberg all out on the track, Ocon all very much in danger of getting sucked into that bottom 5. It's really a bottom 4 because Verstappen's not taking part in this at all. But Magnussen, Stroll, Ericsson, Hartley all heading for an early stoppage unless they can improve.
Bottas has done 10 laps. Has he used up 2 sets of his 6 available sets of tyres going into qualifying? Will it compromise him in Q3?
Really suffering with traction and all those kind of things.
It's one tale of woe after another for Lance Stroll every time he comes on the team radio. Watching Kevin Magnussen now from the fastest part of the track, out of the tunnel into the Nouvelle chicane, and now back on the power again, swinging the car left-handed through to back where the party boats have been celebrating all day long so far. No time to take in the atmosphere as he breezes past them down towards Rascasse. Someone's gone straight on, I think, at Saint-Devote. That's why there are yellow flags being waved there, and you have to slow down when you see these yellow flags, and that compromises those that have started their flying laps. Magnussen will come across the line now, and he really is struggling, Martin. He's got one more lap to try and get out of the bottom 5.
The car looked all over the place. Tail end sliding oversteer on the powering out of corners, struggling to slow the car down in Rascasse, a really scruffy corner. And as you say, if you face yellow flags going into Q1, your lap is over. Going into Sector 1, I should say, and there it is.
That's Charles Leclerc down there that has gone off the track down at turn 1, come back on again. So that's compromised a few people's laps here at a time they don't want it. Kevin Magnussen hasn't been eliminated in Q1 so far this season. He was knocked out 10 times last year, and he is very much looking, with a checker flag now flying, that he is out of this qualifying session. In fact, looking at the sector times, Martin, of those that are out there trying to improve, that yellow flag has absolutely scuppered their chances.
And Brendan Hartley down in 16th in the Toro Rosso, a car we expected to start this race well inside the top 10. It's really played out badly for him.
So, Charles Leclerc, the Monegasque man, maybe a bit of local knowledge there, rather protected his own inclusion in Q2 by going straight on at Saint-Devote. We've not seen the incident, but the net result was he went straight on. Yellow flags are flying. Leclerc, by being the 9th fastest driver, is already through to Q2, and those behind had to slow down, and that was the end of the race.
Terribly convenient. Something we used to do back in the day. No investigation necessary for Bottas in the tunnel with Raikkonen.
Yeah.
Lucky escape there, I'd call that one.
Oh, they both got through in the end.
You do your qualifying lap, and then the team would fill you up and send you back out. And well, you wouldn't block anybody, but you certainly wouldn't help them through either. Now we've got different rules. Bit of adjustment going on there, which is somewhat personal, but absolutely necessary. When you put the crutch straps on and the 6 seat belts, it's all got to be in the right place.
You can be as serious as you want about that. I am still going to smirk, I'm sorry.
No inappropriate words there.
Setup changes, Martin. That's what it all is. So the bottom 5.
But it's absolutely, trust me, it's essential to get organised.
It's essential to have a gearbox that works as well. But for Max Verstappen, sadly, that didn't happen for him. He is out as we're watching Brendan Hartley. Now, was he properly impeded by a Force India there as well, Martin?
Was he actually on a hot lap? I don't know. Oops.
Ooh, and that's Charles Leclerc, who did very well there, Martin, to avoid the barrier.
I did a mistake. Copy, Charles.
I like to see, I don't like to see that incident, but that tells me a very clear head, because when you're heading straight to the barriers at well over 100 miles an hour, to have the consciousness to take your foot off the brake is not always that easy. And he did very well there. And all of our banter about, it was how convenient was that. That was, he saved a very big accident, a big incident there. In fact, accident, because if you slapped, do you remember, was it Felipe Massa did that, hit the barrier there, and then of course you got 3 wheels on your wagon and you're heading for a massive head-on later on.
Jolyon Palmer had a moment down there as well.
Yeah.
It is very easily done. Charles Leclerc, who was in Q2 in the last 2 races, is there again. That man was the fastest in the first part of qualifying. His teammate didn't get going. Gearbox change, Verstappen starts last. Kevin Magnussen out in Q1 for the first time this season. Lance Stroll, sadly, not for the first time this season, joins him. Marcus Ericsson and Brendan Hartley, they're the 5 who can go and put their feet up. The other 15 still have work to do.
Well, wow. Max Verstappen has not got away with it. We thought he was going to be ready for qualifying, but a late call. They discovered the problem with the gearbox and decided to change it when it was too late. Did they get too greedy? That is the question, Paul de Resta. Should they just have taken the risk out of it, changed the gearbox and accepted perhaps 6th, 7th on the grid rather than the back?
I guess that's what they've got to ask themselves tonight. It would have been far quicker getting the car ready for qualifying had they just changed the whole rear end, but it went in too hard. We even questioned it here. Obviously they've got the data, but they're racers, Red Bull, and that's kind of the philosophy. They want to get out there, they want to be greedy. They've had a great car that could lock out the front row, but Max has got the longest, most painful day ahead of him tomorrow. I mean, you could do something very different, but he's not going to be happy when he probably sees his teammate, who looks like he's going to be in pole, is going to be the first one through when they come over the back markers.
Yeah, but this is great. This is the human element sort of coming through. He made the mistake, he's now paying the penalty. Okay, it's harmed the team at the same time. It's a bit of jeopardy that's coming into effect as well.
What it does do as well, it kind of lets Ricciardo get on with his job. It settles him. He knows he's got the best car out there now, and he's not got his teammate to beat, so he can be a little bit safe.
For those just watching for the first time on Sky One and Sky Sports Mix, I mean, if you're not aware of Max Verstappen and the talent of him, he's 20 years of age, right?
Yeah.
He's won Grand Prix already, but this season it's just not. It's not been the Max we know, has it? 6 mistakes in 6 weekends. You just wonder what he's thinking right now. I mean, did you go through a dark period like this?
Not like that, no, I must admit, but I still find it exciting, you know, to see a driver on the very, very edge, as I said, making these sort of mistakes that can happen. I think it's still exciting for me. The race is still not over. Yes, he's going to be starting at the back of the grid, and you never ever know what he can achieve.
Look, he thinks he was potentially impeded. Brendan Hartley looked good all weekend. I think his teammate was in 12th. Disappointing for him. He's the nice guy. We got 5 teams eliminated, or people from 5 different teams eliminated in that first qualifying session. Hartley himself, Ericsson, Stroll, Magnussen and Verstappen. But just half a second, Paul, separating 6th from 16th. That's how tight it's going to be in Q2.
Yeah, and that's what qualifying's about. It's a great thing if you're standing there watching, you know, some of your favourites are out. But getting a lap around here, you just have to do enough to get through Q1. Next time you get less traffic, next time again in Q3 you get less traffic. That's when you've got to start winding it up, and that's when we're really going to see the lap times start to tumble. But it's great by some of them. Some of them a painful day ahead, but Hartley, as you said, Toro Rosso looking very strong all weekend, and they've got another difficult day ahead of them to try and get something out of it.
Do the stewards tend to be a little bit more forgiving here with the nature of the amount of traffic that you get at Monaco? You know, Kimi potentially being impeded by Bottas, that's being looked at. Vettel was saying it. It's difficult not to get one part of your lap impeded a little bit.
Yeah, again, the drivers will always complain, even if they realistically know that there was no way the driver could get out of the way. They're going to moan because there might be a benefit of getting their sort of fellow competitor sort of thrown out for another penalty. It is so hard here. There is no room to sort of hide and get off the track and get out of the way. Generally, the drivers do it very, very well.
Ricciardo in a class of his own in that opening qualifying session. Let's get back upstairs to David and Martin.
Here's the green light then. Carlos Sainz, first driver onto the track. Charles Leclerc could have had a very nasty skirmish into the barriers. Joins him, followed by Sergei Sorokin, who is very much outperforming the expectations of the Williams team so far this season. Was up there in final practice this morning in 10th place. He was comfortably through to Q2 after a decent couple of laps in the early part of this qualifying. We've got 15 minutes here, Martin. We lose another 5 before the next 10 go for pole. But the key thing about this session is at the time you set your best, well, the lap I should say, you set your best time on, whatever tyres you've got on your car. If you've got into the top 10, that's what you start the race on. Is anyone brave enough to go for a more durable tyre, or are they all going to have to go for the very fast and not lasting very long Hypersofts?
Well, both Mercedes are out on the Ultra Softs, not the Hypersofts. Is that a tyre?
So just be aware there's going to be a mixture of tyres in this run. So most cars are going to be going for lap 1. So probably going to be needing to let cars through.
So clearly then the Ultra Softs need a couple of laps preparation. That's very helpful information there from Valtteri Bottas's engineer, Tony Ross.
Yep.
And very interesting thing. So will Ferrari or Red Bull react to this? Of course, you haven't done your fastest lap until the 15 minutes is over. And you can bluff, you can go out on them and then actually put a set of hypers on right at the end. There's about a second a lap difference. But this does, if you can clear the bar and get through to the top 10 shootout on these tyres, you can then park those for the race and go for the Hypersofts in the final part of qualifying, the top 10 shootout. So if it works and they can get through, but they're thick end of a second a lap slower. Right. Is that your kind of information too, Crofty?
But it could be enough to get yourself through, and it gives you much better strategic options for the race. And you need that round here because it's not quite as easy to qualify in Monaco, or to race, I should say, and overtake in Monaco as it is elsewhere. So down to you.
So it's a nice idea but of Mercedes to go with a harder tyre, but it's not one being shared by Red Bull or Ferrari. Both of them have just passed me here in the pit lane on the still softer tyre, the Hyper Soft. So the problem is that you would normally think that the people who would threaten Mercedes in this session, the likes of Alonso, Sainz, Hulkenberg and the Renaults, they're normally between 8/10 and a second slower than those cars, aren't they? Not this weekend, not round here they're not. They're about 4/10 to half a second behind. And so if those sort of midfield cars have got a tyre on that's a second quicker than the Mercedes, then they could very easily punt them out of this session, and then Mercedes won't make it into Q3. That's the risk. That's why we might see the Mercedes switch to the even softer tyre later on in the session. But hey, you never know. They might even take not getting through into Q3 just to guarantee that they start on that purple tyre, Crofty. You never know.
Stranger things.
Well, although track position is king round here, so you'd think that would be daft.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. Gasly's found half a second anyway to get himself up second fastest at the moment. Knock on 0.6 of a second to go P1 at this time.
Fernando Alonso and Sergio Perez, as you can see by the timings out on the track too, and Alonso goes quickest with a 1:12.2. We missed Fernando Alonso here in Monaco last year. He was off racing in the Indy 500. Great to see him back. The Formula One racetrack at a place where he's had great success in the past.
I did a long interview with Alonso this week that goes out later on around Canada when we're talking about his 300th Grand Prix appearance, and he gave me the distinct impression it was very uncertain to be on the grid in 2019. Whether he's playing some of his games, Fernando, but he really left me under that clear impression.
McLaren wants him to. They haven't really got a plan B at the moment. That is a new track record for Daniel Ricciardo.
Okay, no front end. No front end, okay.
Romain Grosjean a long way off setting a new track record, sadly for him, but that's a 1:11.3. That is fully 0.4 of a second faster than his best time, which was also a track record in practice this morning. Sebastian Vettel with a 1:11.5, Raikkonen in the 1:11.2. They're now starting to ramp up these times. The leading contender starting to go even faster. Valtteri Bottas, where can he put his Mercedes here on the ultra soft tyres? Bottas crosses the line in 11th fastest, 1:12.8. Might need a bit more warm up. Lewis Hamilton with a 1:12.6 might need a bit more warm up. He's just in the top 10.
Okay, very bad left warm up on the front. Beginning of the lap for the first one. Understood.
And when Romain Grosjean say no front end, what he means is no front end grip. The car's sliding across the track with what we call understeer. The car won't steer enough. You're cranking the steering angle on and the front tyre just won't respond.
Just looking at Sebastian Vettel, trying to find a bit of space while we watch Hülkenberg. He's not finding it.
Very poor. Okay, copy.
Vettel coming into the pits because he couldn't find any space either, was encountering traffic. Hulkenberg next to cross the line, goes 7th fastest overall. Hamilton's on the cusp. Bottas is in that bottom 5. What happens on these next laps for the Mercedes drivers will I think, validate the gamble or not.
So will they go fast, slow, fast and see what they've got? Because it's not working at the moment. There's no way they can start this Grand Prix in 10th and 13th, even with those tyres. The field spread in the first 20 laps will put them over a pit stop behind.
Yeah, they're on a slow lap at the moment, so conditioning the tyres, making sure that the energy recovery system is all primed and ready for a fast lap. But Mercedes not looking on the pace in the way that they would want. Ocon crosses the line, goes 8th fastest for Force India. So he does that. Kimi Raikkonen, who's currently 3rd fastest, comes in. I think anyone in the 1:11s will be quite satisfied with the way this has gone and think we might not need to go out again. Grosjean and Van Dorn trying to improve their position at the moment. Grosjean is the slowest of the 15 times out there and has, of course, that 3-place grid penalty to add to wherever he qualifies. At the moment, he's still only 15th.
And Grosjean there really leaning on the curb. Van Dorn's up to 6th, but Grosjean really leaning on the curb to arrest the slide in the final corner, the anti-nose corner.
Right, this is better from both Bottas and Hamilton. 18.8 for the first sector as Sainz goes 9th fastest. That's on a par with the best first sector times we're seeing.
So they weren't pushing at the maximum then, were they, on that first one? It was a preparation lap, and then, as you say, let's charge all the batteries up and get ready for the big lap, and we're about to find out. But Hamilton's done a 34.7 middle sector. That's nowhere. And so has Bottas done a 34.3. That's not a great lap either. Hamilton then abandons.
I think the ultra-soft gamble hasn't worked. They wouldn't be the first people to come back from Monaco having failed at a gamble, Martin. The front steps of the casino are full of them. Sometimes you get it right, but I don't think the ultra-soft tyres were the right thing for this particular moment.
And, of course, Hamilton had just 2 sets of those for the entire weekend. Bottas did bring 3 with him. So they had the luxury of doing that, unlike some teams who committed totally to the hypers.
Yeah, they had a brand new set available each for this day. It's not quite worked out, so they're under pressure because they've got to put a good lap together.
And of course they've got less experience now of this track on the hypersofts than somebody like Daniel Ricciardo, for example. But they will get a run on them quite clearly, because that hasn't worked down in 11th and 14.
Having used those ultra soft tyres, of course, they haven't got any new sets now left for the race. Hulkenberg really aggressive around Anthony Noakes, the final corner, 7th fastest. He makes rather a habit, Nico Hulkenberg, of qualifying 7th fastest. Australia, Bahrain, China, 7th fastest for those races, and the final 2 of the previous season as well.
Just over a quarter of a second is the difference between Alonso in 5th and, well, Gasly in 10th at the moment. That's how close it is out there. We might well see a 1 minute 10 then with Ricciardo's 1:11.3 and Vettel's 1:11.5.
Yeah, this tyre is terrible. Okay, copy.
Described him as unsafe yesterday.
I didn't like him at all. So Hulkenberg is 7th fastest, Sainz is 9th fastest, and Cyril Abiteboul, it's all getting very, very tight in that race for the top 10 in Q3, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Sorry, we were just in the middle of deciding something, but yeah, very tight. And based on information from the first run, we need to decide something regarding tires, prep or not prep. There's been a discussion over the weekend, but it's going to be tight, so let's see.
Do you get involved in all the decisions? Do you have your input as a team principal as to the way things should be?
No, reality is just making sure that there is a good communication, and just sometimes I'm passing on some information because I can see that some experts are sort of focused and not necessarily aware of what can be going on in different areas. So just making sure that there is no lost ball, I would say.
The Ultrasoft on the Mercedes was a particularly bad experiment, wasn't it? It just didn't work at all.
No, I think it's just too much of a delta, and that's something we discussed, I think, this morning. There is too much of a delta, and if it's true for Mercedes, it's certainly true for us, so there was no choice. I guess they were trying something in order to be able to compete against Red Bull, who seems to have the upper hand here, but it's not working.
5 minutes to go, Cyril. Good luck, fingers crossed for the rest of this session. See if you can get both of your cars through to Q3. Renault are there at the moment. Mercedes are not. Both Bottas and Hamilton out on the track. So talk us through with Lewis Hamilton then, Martin, the next 2 miles.
It's a long curved, it's not a pit straight, and collect the curb on the inside of Saint-Devote, thread the car up the hill. There's some quite bumpy bits. You go over a flat part into Massenet, follow the barrier, then just let it breathe a bit in the middle so you don't hit it outside the front door.
My friend in front is blocking. If you can, overtake, but don't take any risk.
Plenty of camber here and full lock. Driver has to take his hand off the steering wheel to get through there. Will he take a bit of curb? Yes, he does. Portier onto the C front, mind the barrier on the inside. Just let the car go absolutely flat out through the tunnel. A little twist as it turns a bit more through the exit, burst into the sunshine, all the weight transfers forward, flick it into the chicane, traffic ahead of us. Now this is a really critical corner, back. You'll be so close to the barrier on the inside, then let it go absolutely full throttle there, car dancing around, mind the barrier on the inside, glance, Hope's given a jump across you can barely keep up with the car. Late apex for Raskas, and mind both barriers in Anthony Noakes' corner, and then just drive for the line. What's it going to be?
It's going to be close. It's 3rd fastest for Lewis Hamilton. That should take him mid 1:11 through to Q3. Valtteri Bottas next across the line, 5th fastest. Can't get into the 1:11s. Valtteri Bottas. Is that going to be enough then? A 1 minute 12.0 for the Finn to get through. If those behind can improve by half a second or so, he might be in slight danger.
Yeah, he's been on his back foot all the way through, hasn't he, Valtteri Bottas, in terms of the potential pace, I think, of the Mercedes. He's not having a great qualifying so far, but there is a little bit of time left. But unfortunately, that's for his rivals.
Esteban Ocon, round Raskas comes the French driver, looking for a good morale-boosting weekend after not finishing either of the last 2 races. Goes 6th fastest, decent performance from him. Crucially for Mercedes and Valtteri Bottas, a 10th of a second down, so not ahead of the Mercedes. Sorokin only 12th fastest. Grosjean next across the line, 14th fastest. The Haas still really struggling out there, and we can head down to 10.
Yeah, that's a cracking lap from Ocon, just 100th of a second quicker than his teammate Sergio Perez. So there is some pace in the Force India after all. They might have to watch out for Carlos Sainz. So Renault have made up their mind what they're going to do as to what Cyril was talking about earlier, and Sainz is on an out lap now.
He is.
And Bottas is safe now with Ocon and Perez not quite able to beat his time.
Kimi Räikkönen, fastest first sector overall, and he's 2 milliseconds up as he heads into the swimming pool section, and out of that we go. Do just want to hold your breath every time the drivers make their way and flick right and then left and somehow find a spot between the barriers. Räikkönen was on pole last year, he's second fastest at the moment, 4/100ths of a second, the gap between himself and Daniel Ricciardo.
Might be the oldest man on the track, but that was brilliant.
I have more fuel or no?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Let's abort this one. Let's abort this one. Be careful of Hulkenberg. He's the car behind.
He's on there for outlap. Yes.
He's on his outlap. Okay.
A little snapshot there of how the driver needs to know what's going on around. And Fernando asking, have I got enough fuel? Not have I got enough fuel to get back, but to do another lap. And that's exactly what he is going to be doing. Bottas is going for another lap, as is Ricciardo.
As long as you cross the line before the checkered flag, you can complete that lap.
Ricciardo dropping down towards Portier, as you say. Martin by the seafront, not going to be by the seafront for long. They're reclaiming a lot of land to the left of that big sign. It might be the middle of the city in about 10 years' time, you never know. And out into the sunshine he comes once again. The Red Bull just looking mighty round here, so responsive to everything the driver asks of it. Effortless through to back, hugging that far right-hand rail. 2/100ths up still, even though that wasn't the best middle sector that we've seen so far. And these are brand new hyper-soft tyres that Ricciardo is using as Ocon dives into the pits. That's the end of his qualifying session 2. He's currently 6th fastest as Ricciardo crosses the line now and goes even faster into the 1:11.12s now.
Yeah, that's 11.278, another new lap record.
So behind, who's improving? Well, through the first sector, Sainz put in a decent time. He's currently only 9th fastest. Gasly putting in a personal best time as well, as we watch Sirotkin manhandling that Williams towards the line, but can't improve on that 13th fastest. And Williams, the only team along with Sauber not to reach Q3 this season. They don't look like they're going to do that at the moment. Gasly does squeeze in.
It's good enough.
Does squeeze into the top 10, but only just. Behind him, Hulkenberg hasn't had the best middle sector. Pretty decent through the first sector. And Leclerc and Grosjean aren't going to be troubling the top 10 either. Here's Hulkenberg crossing the line now. 11th fastest. He misses out. And Carlos Sainz out-qualifies Nico Hulkenberg for the second race in a row. Hulkenberg, who dominated his teammate for so long, has now been out-qualified by Sainz for 2 races in a row.
And sensational job from Pierre Gasly inside the top 10 for Toro Rosso.
Yeah, the plaudits and the headlines will go to Daniel Ricciardo, but Gasly really hooking up a decent lap.
I tell you what, if Ricciardo thought he got pole in his pocket before this qualifying session started, he's got a different view right now. Ferrari breathing down his neck.
Well, he probably thought when Max Verstappen didn't take part in qualifying, good, that's 90% of the competition gone, as it were. A major chunk of my angst for the afternoon eliminated. But Räikkönen and Vettel right on his tail. Can Mercedes respond as well?
So where are we? 15. Fudge. Sorry, I couldn't do any better. No, you got everything you got out of it from where we were today.
So qualifies 15th, starts 18th fastest for that 3-place grid penalty there. For Romain Grosjean. Charles Leclerc starts 14th for the Monegasque driver for the second race in a row. Sergei Sirotkin 13th for Williams. Van Dorn 12th. Hulkenberg misses out by 1/10 of a second and is out qualified, as I say, by Carlos Sainz for the second time, and for the first time ever in back-to-back races. So his teammate goes through into the shootout for pole, along with Pierre Gasly of Toro Rosso. Alonso's right up there. The 2 Force Indias of Ocon and Perez. The Mercedes of Hamilton and Bottas. The Ferraris of Räikkönen and Vettel. And the Red Bull of Daniel Ricciardo. Last 2 pole sitters are both there, going for pole in a few moments' time.
Okay, let's get the views of a couple of drivers out in the first qualifying session. First time this year, Kevin Magnussen has gone out in Q1. But first of all, Brendan Hartley, who I think believes he was impeded slightly.
Brendan, it's typical out there with traffic and the yellow flags obviously at the end of the session. Are you thinking what might have been today?
Yeah, it's really frustrating after being P7 this morning. Wasn't as happy with the car in terms of balance, but to be honest, we didn't change too much, so probably a bit to be looked at. But yeah, everyone probably has the same story with traffic and yellow flags, but first run I had to abort my last lap, and then the last 2 attempts in the qualifying I had like you say, yellow and traffic, so pretty frustrated because it's hard to pass around here, and I've been strong all weekend, and yeah, I'm disappointed.
You could have been, you think, Q3. Well, Kevin, it's the first time you've been out in Q1 this season, but was the car beneath you anything that was going to take you through today?
Yeah, it was it's a bit of a shock this weekend. I mean, coming from last weekend being so good and, you know, so competitive to being this uncompetitive and really struggling for so many different reasons. It's not just, you know, we can't just put the finger on tires not working or balance issues. It's just lacking pace this weekend. So, and you know, we can't seem to find it in any way. We've tried in the short time. We've tried a hell of a lot of things. So not easy.
Just one maybe circuit-specific issue with the car. I mean, I know Roman's made it through, but he hasn't looked as if he's found great performance either, really.
No, I mean, we got a lot of damage on the car. You know, riding curbs, and with the bumpy track, we damaged the floor a little bit, and I've done some repairs, and that, you know, could play a part, but it just seems pretty crazy to lose that much performance from that. So we know we're on at the very end of this car, and then we'll upgrade it in Canada, hopefully, and hopefully find a different situation, because I think a lot of the other teams have brought all their upgrades, and, you know, in a bit further down the road on their upgrades. So we need to catch up on that, and I'm sure we will.
So Daniel Ricciardo with another lap record, but not as comfortable as he thought, as Martin was pointing out in commentary there, Paul, Johnny. Where have Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Räikkönen in particular found this extra pace from?
Well, they always do. We know Ferrari, Mercedes, they've got this extra engine mode that we always talk about. They seem to use it in Q2, but as you get to the end of what you're hunting for, it depends on the fuel level you've been running. Daniel maybe wanted to get himself in the zone, see everything coming at him a bit quicker on Thursday to get in the groove, and ultimately that's where qualifying today is the key part of this race weekend. I still think he's got enough in hand. I think he's out there, but the others are going to be pushing him all the way because they want to play second best.
Yeah, Ferrari might have found the pace, but it doesn't seem to have worked so far for Mercedes.
No, not yet. But again, when you heard there from Brendan Hartley, he said where the balance sort of disappeared, it sometimes goes the other way for teams that were struggling a little bit more, and then it comes their way and they have a much better balance, and that's the potential that we're going to have to see in the top 10 shootout, because that balance shift is definitely going to be an issue.
It is, and what you're doing is chasing track temperature. It's as hot as I ever really remember Monaco Grand Prix being as well. A lot of the track has been resurfaced. It's blacker, the surface as well, the asphalt, so it's going to be even hotter than normal. That's where you're chasing it, and maybe that's playing into the hands of Ferrari and Mercedes. But it's a great battle. Great to see them all out there. Great to see it all close, and we can't really call it.
Small margins, hey? Just see that couple of inches. You know, that's the one that his teammate clipped, and that's how close you've got to be to get the maximum.
And this is where that Red Bull had a very sharp end on that run there. That's where the balance seemed to have a slight shift. Now, did he try something just to say, need a little bit more front-end bite? But then sometimes it just goes over the top that little bit.
He's a master at work around here, Danny. Reckon maybe that's where we saw the mistake from Max, trying to chase and trying to keep up with Daniel around here feeling comfortable, and that's where it goes wrong, and sometimes you just clip these barriers.
So it's Ricciardo from Räikkönen and Vettel in the Ferraris, then the Mercedes. Force India is looking good in the form of Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez. Alonso, Sainz and Pierre Gasly making up the top 10. Who will take pole? Ricciardo favourite, you'd say. Back upstairs.
Red Bull's 250th Grand Prix. Can they start it on pole position? Will Kimi Räikkönen, in his 275th career starts, nick pole position off him? We shall see in a few moments. The track temperature, 46 degrees at the moment. That is around about 10 degrees higher than the normal average. Affects the tyres very, very much. So we'll see if the drivers can drive their way around that as well. We're reaching the green light in time for Q3. So, 65th World Championship Monaco Grand Prix. Pole has won 27 out of the previous 64. But to get into the top 3, Martin, is what you really have to do around here. Track position is king, and I think we've got drivers vying for those top 3 positions, and it's a bit uncertain as to who might come out here on top.
It absolutely is. 0.3 of a second covered the top 4. That's where your pole position is going to come from. And with a million conscious and subconscious decisions and actions a driver takes around this lap, I made that number up, but I'll stand by it. You are literally living on your wits, and so many things you do, as I say, consciously and subconsciously, to guide a Formula 1 car these speeds. Watch them come through the exit of the swimming pool, the speed they take in, the precision they need, the skill they need to carry speed and just glance across those curves, helping just turn the car a little bit for good measure. All to play for. I really don't know who's going to be on pole.
I love this as well. Ricciardo comes out first, and Ferrari send Kimi straight out behind the Aussie as well.
I'd much rather be in front than behind in that, because it means at some point Kimi's going to have to jockey back and find some space, unless he thinks he's going to get past Ricciardo. And Ricciardo's got other ideas. So what they're both going to do now is burn their tyres out on the outlap, having a little squabble.
Yeah, one pushing the other and not helping either's chances. But I just like the fact Ricciardo goes on Ferrari straight out there as well, just to give Ricciardo a bit of a reminder that there's a prancing horse that is right behind him as well. And Ferrari, by the way, if they get pole today, they will tie the record for poles in Monaco, 11, currently held by McLaren.
Hamilton having to wait a long time for his teammate to clear out of the way, and he knows he's got a big gap behind him. And well, I admire the confidence he's going to have into Saint Devote when he hits the brakes and assumes the front's going to turn in. But he knows it pretty well, and it gets through there just fine. So we're looking for something like an 18.8, and it's an 18.7 for Bottas first sector. 18.6, 18.7 then now looks like the new benchmark as they in this very first short sector of the lap.
Lewis Hamilton, of course, pole here in Monaco in 2015, twice a winner here as well.
18.7 also for Hamilton.
The two Mercedes rather matching each other. Bottas never been on pole here before. Best place in qualifying, third on the grid this time last year. Bottas making his way round to back at the moment as Hamilton jams on the brakes, slows the car down, and then gets going once more out of the Nouvelle chicane.
Sainz has put a 12.2 into match, his Q2 times pretty much. But Bottas then will be the first of the big guns to complete a lap.
Sainz ahead of Alonso, ahead of Gasly. Where is Bottas going to be at the end of this lap? He is into the 111s, 111.5, but that might not be enough. He might need to find another 2, 3, maybe even 4 tenths. Hamilton next to cross the line and does so with a 111.2, so it's Hamilton on provisional pole position. As he does that, Ricciardo puts in an 18.6 for the first sector, already a tenth up. Raikkonen matches the two Mercedes. It's a blistering middle sector as well for Ricciardo, who's got nearly a couple of tenths in hand on Lewis Hamilton. Daniel Ricciardo, who was on pole, of course, here in 2016, would have taken the win, but they got it all wrong with the pit stops, looking for his second career pole, and crosses the line now to go into the 110s. What a lap from Daniel Ricciardo, provisional pole by a country mile. Kimi Raikkonen can only produce the third best lap. Hamilton has put himself in between the Red Bull and the Ferrari. It's a new track record. You've had one yeehaw, Martin. I'll give you another one. That was stunning.
It was brilliant. Poetry in motion. Just the perfect lap there from Ricciardo. You just saw him just for the first time really beginning to stretch it out a little bit up against the barriers, but carried forward momentum, didn't take any risk, and the car was just gliding around the track in an invisible groove that generates the lap time.
I'll come up with a poem for Daniel Ricciardo in a little bit to match the poetry on the track. Something like, his name is Daniel Ricciardo and you don't know how fast he can go. Well, he's put his car on provisional pole with a 1:10.8. Take that, the rest of the field.
Just keep an eye on Vettel. He's done an extra warm-up lap on his tyres. He's coming at it in a different way, and he's done an 18.7 first sector, so not too bad. You can see how hard they find it to get around that hairpin. Front wheel dangling in the air.
And we can do the second push if you need.
Nice try. Okay, good move.
Understood.
Okay, so Kimi might be going again before he comes into the pits. Sebastian Vettel then down into that Nouvelle chicane. Ted, quickly to you.
Yeah, it wasn't an extra warm-up lap. They were just got caught out by traffic. They decided to wait with Sebastian Vettel and send him out when he had a clear track after everybody had gone.
Well, he's got it at the moment, a 33.4. It's a very good middle sector for Sebastian Vettel, but he is a couple of tenths off. The key here is A, whether he can beat his teammate.
Got in too deep into Raskas, got away with it.
And B, whether he can get ahead of the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. We're seeing the best drivers on the planet here save their very best, but they might have to need even better for their second run. Vettel only third fastest.
I don't know if they can. I mean, there was a bit of a scruffy lap from Vettel, and he had to Ted said he got out late, but I don't think they've got an answer for Ricciardo's lap.
1 minute 10.8. We knew the speeds would be fast. We've never seen a car putting a 1:10.8 here before. Kimi on his first sector, 18.7. Needs to improve by a tenth. What's he got left in the middle sector? What grip has he still got from those hyper soft tyres? You're going to need it here, not just round to back.
He's coasting.
Yeah. Sadly,
he's not happy with that lap.
Gets a round of applause from a lady in front of our commentary box here. But sadly, when she sees his time, she's not going to be applauding for long. Kimi fan, but only fourth fastest then for Kimi Räikkönen. So is the scrap on then to join Ricciardo on the front row? And at the moment, Martin, there is little. There is 5 milliseconds separating Hamilton, Vettel and Räikkönen.
And that's extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, the only interchangeable parts on these cars are basically the tyres, I would say, and the red rear light there you see flashing, there's also the rain light. Nothing else swaps. Even the standard FIA boxes will have different software in them for each team, and they come up with a time that's virtually identical between Mercedes and Ferrari, but not Red Bull.
80-odd thousand different components if you count everything that's in the engine as well, and yeah, 5 milliseconds. So behind them, Valtteri Bottas a little bit off the pace, and then Carlos Sainz currently 5 milliseconds. So behind them, Valtteri Bottas a little bit off the pace, and then Carlos Sainz currently 6th fastest for Carlos Sainz, ahead of Fernando Alonso, who's got his McLaren up in the 7th. Sergio Perez, who's qualified 7th here for the last 3 years running. I think he's never started higher than 7th, but for the last 3 years he's had that lucky 7th position on the grid. Well, he's got to pull out 3/10 on Fernando Alonso. Perez's teammate Esteban Ocon right behind him, and then Pierre Gasly as well. I would imagine Cyril Abiteboul on the Renault pit wall. You're pretty much purring at Carlos Sainz's pace in this Q3 session.
You mean Fernando's pace, no?
Well, no, Carlos Sainz.
Yeah. Well,
Fernando's not driving for you yet, or is he? I don't know.
Sorry,
It's an exclusive.
I didn't get the question, sorry. It was a bit noisy in the background. It's been a good first lap. Obviously, not all our opponents have had fair chances because they were using some new sets, cup sets, so it'd be interesting to see what's going on with all new sets for everyone.
Yeah, Perez and Ocon behind you in the Force India went out on used tyres, as you said, so they look like a challenge. They both did 1 minute 12.1s. Do you think you can get into the 11s? Do you think Carlos can pull something out in the 111s?
I think that's going to be a bit challenging because it was a good lap. It was he didn't make any apparent mistake. Maybe he can improve slightly in sector 3, sector 1 and 2 were good, which is good because we didn't do a prep lap, so we were a bit too worried for sector 1, but that was good. So let's see what he can do, what can come out of sector 3 this time.
And let us not forget, that's a Renault engine under a different name in the back of a Red Bull that looks streets ahead of everyone else on these streets.
Absolutely. I don't forget whatever the name.
I'm sure you and Christian will be shaking hands, Cyril, at the end of this. Thanks ever so much. Good luck for the final part of qualifying. 3 minutes to go then, Martin. Who can dislodge the Aussie?
Well, it's a long way to Australia from these parts, and I think his time's a long way away as well. But what have they got to find? It's the thick end of half a second. It's 4.5 tenths they've got to find. You'd think, well, just go a little bit faster everywhere. You've got so many corners to do it with, but it doesn't quite work out like that. But I mean, it's doable. It's doable, but I would be amazed if any of them could find 4.5 tenths with the front. What we tend to see in these last runs is they throw caution to the wind and maybe get a little bit too punchy on the brakes and get in a bit deep. But we'll see what they've got. We've got world-class drivers up there. Ricciardo with a string of world champions on his tail in Hamilton, Vettel and Raikkonen. The Ferrari, if they've got any more power left, any more battery power left maybe, they can apply it now.
Ted, down to you.
Just a quick one. The Force India's Gasly and Alonso were on used, slightly worn Hypersoft tyres for that first run, as we see Piero Ferrari and Prince Albert there. So they haven't really shown their true pace. We'll get that now on this run coming up.
It's the top 10 shootout. We've got 10 cars on the track with a minute and a half left.
And see, already, there's Daniel Ricciardo looking in his mirrors, trying to find a bit of space. Giving the party boats an extra close-up look at the Red Bull as he drives slowly past. Elsewhere, further up the road, Sebastian Vettel hustling, really going for it, and he's finding pace, Martin. 0.03 of a second slower. That can be made up.
Yeah, 18.6. The car rotated nicely through the hairpin. Does he take the pavement? No, he just leans against the curbing. But the car's certainly working very nicely. We'll see how it stops down into the harbour front chicane. This is 9, turn 9 through the tunnel, turn 10 and 11 now. And you want to just clip that little orange piece on the inside barrier. And now you've got to really throw caution to the wind through to back. Just carry the minimum apex speed. Not the shot we need at the moment. This is the one we need.
Max Verstappen watches on. He can do nothing. Sebastian Vettel can still make up. 8/100ths in the final sector. Lewis Hamilton has put in the quickest first sector time we've seen so far. And Daniel Ricciardo was only a 10th down on that. Sebastian Vettel, who was on pole here in 2011, has taken 3 poles in 2018. Ain't going to be on pole today, but he is on the front row at the moment as we go on with Lewis Hamilton through the swimming pool chicane.
He took more speed than Vettel did. I don't think any of them took quite the speed that Ricciardo was doing through there, but this is going to be so close. Oh, he's understeered through the last corner.
Kimi Raikkonen is off the pace at the moment. Hamilton to cross the line now, and it's only third fastest for Hamilton, so Vettel has dislodged the Mercedes from the front row. Daniel Ricciardo, pole position is his. The rest aren't getting closer, but he's getting faster. Fastest middle sector we've seen so far. Get ready with another big yee-haw, Martin Brundle. Ricciardo crosses the line now, and just misses out on extending his advantage, but for the second time in his career, and for the second time on the streets of Monte Carlo, Daniel Ricciardo's hit the jackpot and he'll start on pole.
Well deserved it is too. Hamilton just got a little bit wide. The front wouldn't grip. It's an off camber on the way to Anthony Noakes, the final corner, and he had to hesitate, and then he had to jump on the throttle pedal and lost a bit of traction for good measure. That's allowed the Ferrari on the front row of the grid. So Ricciardo from his old teammate.
Yes. Cheers, boys.
A man of few words, some of which we don't want to hear, or certainly can't hear. But boy, can he do it behind the wheel. The only man in F1 history to take multiple poles in Monaco without ever being on pole anywhere else. He saved his best, doesn't he, for this place. He is on pole then, ahead of Sebastian Vettel, his former teammate, and Lewis Hamilton, who you never know might be his teammate in the future. Kimi Raikkonen ahead of Valtteri Bottas, the two Finns 4th and 5th. Ocon out qualifying Sergio Perez, who starts 9th. Fernando Alonso from McLaren, important 7th there. But it smiles and it frowns for Red Bull. The big story, Ricciardo on pole. The second biggest story is teammate Verstappen starting last after a crash this morning and a gearbox change. So, a very hectic qualifying session. Valtteri Bottas goes off to get weighed.
50% done. Let's finish this tomorrow.
And that's the key, Martin. He'll remember 2 years ago, pole did not translate into victory, and it hasn't for the past 3 years here.
Through no fault of his own, because of that scrappy pit stop.
Absolutely.
That really cost him an easy victory, a victory he deserved. But he doesn't have the trophy, he didn't have the win bonus, he did have the disappointment of only finishing second, but that has been a perfect weekend for him. So fast, so precise, so reliable around this challenging racetrack.
Lewis Hamilton never won here from pole position, of course, but he has won here twice from third on the grid, and that's where he starts for tomorrow's race. 10 years since his first win, of course, here in 2008, where he damaged his tyre about 6 laps in, had to take an early pit stop, and still managed to win. Let's hear from the drivers.
One Red Bull first, the other
qualifying
last.
session there. Sorry, just coming in front of the camera. Daniel Ricciardo, pole position.
Yeah, it's good. We've set a statement on Thursday, and we've been quickest every session. So just the race tomorrow, and then we'll celebrate.
And I saw you when you pulled up there, the sort of inner calm coming through the eyes. You've got unfinished business in this track. When you got pole here before, it didn't work out. Big opportunity tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. There's still a lot of fire in this belly, so just it's I've done everything I can so far. Let's finish the job tomorrow. So I'm pumped. It's been a good few days.
Okay, go and get yourself to watch out. Great stuff, Daniel. Lewis Hamilton. Well, off the back of Barcelona, you looked absolutely unbeatable there, and you were. It's been a big, tough challenge around the streets of Monaco.
It has. Congratulations to Daniel. He did a great job. I mean, they've had the pace all weekend. We knew it would be the case this weekend. I gave it everything I could. I don't know if he improved on the last lap, but I was up a little bit, but wasn't able to hold on to it. So still a long race ahead of us tomorrow. These guys I don't even think have even tried the other tyres, so it'll be interesting to see how we all go. But yeah, we're just going to make sure we're on our toes and ready to react tomorrow. But we've got a great crowd. Big thank you to everyone for coming.
That's great, Lewis. Now, can you just explain, you're so dominant in Barcelona, yet struggling to get the car to talk to you here. Is it just a question of balance or grip?
It's a question of grip, mostly. I mean, naturally, we've got 21 races, so the engineers have to be smart in making sure that the car works in the majority, not this. And there's only a couple of slow ones. So we don't mind if Red Bull are quick here, because hopefully we'll have the upper hand on places like Barcelona. There's more tracks like Barcelona and medium speed circuits, so we'll try and capitalize on those ones.
Okay, well, we wish you luck for tomorrow. Unfortunately, we're not going to hear from Sebastian Vettel, but I'm going to assume he feels good that he's best of the rest. We're going to have a great race tomorrow.
Yeah, he's a superstar, isn't he?
Formula One coverage on ESPN is presented exclusively by Mother's Polish.